As we continue on our journey along the digestive tract, our next stop is the small intestine, which is the major site of both chemical digestion and the absorption of nutrients. Relative to the large intestine, it has a smaller diameter, hence its name, although it is significantly longer, 12 to 20 feet, depending on the individual. It extends from the pyloric sphincter to the ileocecal valve. There are three sections in order, which you need to remember in order: the duodenum, the jejunum, and the ileum. The jejunum itself is going to curve around the head of the pancreas and is intimately related to the pancreas. It's only about 10 inches long. It's going to be important, and its relationship to the pancreas and the gallbladder and liver through the bile duct will also be important. Those organs are going to connect via ducts at what is known as the hepatopancreatic ampulla, and the movement of material from those structures into the duodenum will be controlled by the hepatopancreatic sphincter. So the duodenum is going to be a big old mixing bowl. You'll remember it's going to get chyme that's leaving the stomach. It will also accept digestive secretions from the liver and gallbladder and the pancreas. Its main job is to neutralize that acidic chyme. So let's continue. Here is the pancreas, there's the gallbladder, and that little blow up that you can see shows you the bile duct, the pancreatic duct, and hepatopancreatic sphincter. Love it. Now, moving from the duodenum into the jejunum, you need to remember this forever. The majority of chemical digestion and absorption of nutrients will occur within the jejunum. Not in the stomach, not in the duodenum, not in the ileum. Most of the action is going to happen in the jejunum. The ileum is the distal end of the small intestine. It meets with the large intestine, and the movement of material from the small intestine to the large intestine is going to be controlled by the ileocecal valve. There are a few circular folds, and as I have mentioned before, the submucosa is going to contain those Peyer's patches, which will help prevent any bacteria that happen to escape from the large intestine to the small intestine from causing problems, or so we hope. Innervation and blood supply, no surprise, there's going to be autonomic nervous system innervation. The superior mesenteric artery will bring oxygenated blood in, and veins will drain into the superior mesenteric vein, which in turn ships blood off to the hepatic portal system, which in turn is going to move that blood off to the liver for processing. Videos that are good to watch. Now, let's talk about some of the structural modifications. Remember when we started this section, I said that you're going to find mucus everywhere throughout the digestive tract. We sure have. I also mentioned that you will find specialization that will allow for either increased volume and or increased surface area. And when you're talking about increased surface area, you are surely talking about the small intestine. So there will be circular folds within the walls of the small intestine, which are known as the plicae circularis. Atop those plicae circularis will be the villi, and atop the villi will be the microvilli. So the plicae circularis themselves are permanent folds, and they're going to force chyme to slowly move and spiral through the lumen of the small intestine, which means there's greater nutrient absorption. The villi sit atop the plicae circularis and will contain capillary beds and lacteals for increased absorption. And this shows you the plicae circularis, and atop the plicae circularis, the villi. It is fine if you call the plicae circularis circular folds. I learned them with the name, so I feel duty bound to repeat that name. Now, you also need to know about the microvilli. So the microvilli are basically this brush border or carpet on top of the villi. And the villi are going to have epithelial cells on the most superficial aspect. So they are on top of that epithelial cells. And if you think back to histology, when we talked about specializations of epithelial tissue, we did talk about microvilli. Why do we care? Because it increases surface area for increased absorption. The brush border, i.e. the microvilli, will contain enzymes that are going to help digest nutrients. And the enzymes will be for carbohydrate digestion and protein digestion. You'll notice, as shown in the diagram, they will also contain goblet cells, and that goblet cells will produce, you guessed it, mucus. I like that picture because it also shows you a lacteal. And remember that lacteals are going to be specialized lymphatic capillaries. We'll talk about them again momentarily. And this just shows you what's happening again with the villi, the blood vessels and capillary beds in each villi and the lacteal in each villi. It also shows you goblet cells and the absorptive cells and some of the other structures that we're going to be talking about, which include the intestinal crypt. And in that little sort of blow up, you can see the microvilli atop the epithelial cells. And this, yay, is a micrograph of microvilli. Totally cool. Just mentioned lacteals, there they are again. They are going to transport materials that cannot enter blood capillaries because they're too big to get in. So what does that include? Absorbed fatty acids that are going to be assembled into these packages made of protein and fats, which are known as chylomicrons. They are too large to diffuse into the capillary beds. And that material will get transported by the lymphatic system off to venous circulation. Totally cool. Just a couple more links for you guys. Now, within the walls of the small intestine, you will find intestinal crypts. And these guys have a phenomenal rate of cell replacement. The intestinal crypt epithelium is renewed every 2 to 4 days. So 3 to 4 times a week, you're getting new intestinal crypt epithelium. It's just amazing how fast they reproduce. Most intestinal crypts will contain secretory cells that will produce intestinal juices. There are going to be enteroendocrine cells. Their job is to secrete numerous hormones that are going to coordinate and regulate the digestion and absorption of nutrients, as well as insulin secretion and your appetite. There are going to be various types of cells associated with the immune system, which include Paneth cells, and they are going to secrete defensins and lysosomes, which are antimicrobial agents. And of course, there will be stem cells that are going to divide to reproduce and replace the epithelial cells, as we just talked about. The mucosa of the small intestine will contain those Peyer's patches. They may actually protrude up into the submucosa. They're going to protect the distal end of the small intestine against bacteria. We will also have B lymphocytes that leave the intestine and enter the circulatory system and will protect the connective tissue, lamina propria, with the immunoglobulin IgA. And in the duodenum, there will be duodenal or Brunner's glands, same gland, different name, which are going to secrete alkaline mucus. And that's going to be important because you need to neutralize the chyme, which is really acidic. We secrete 1 to 2-ish liters of intestinal juice every day. And the secretion will depend on distension of the small intestine or whether or not the mucosa is irritated by things like acidic chyme. It is slightly alkaline. It's basically isotonic with plasma, largely water, not a lot of enzymes, and will contain mucus. And its job is to facilitate the transport and absorption of nutrients. In the next section, we will talk about the liver and the gallbladder.